Whenever a player simply glances over the cover of a licensed video game, usually nothing but screams of anguish protrudes out of every hole in their skull. So today I wanted to cruise the ooze for a few of these hidden gems, seeing how hairy it can really get, which isn't too challenging of a task to accomplish. All you need to do is look no further than one of the most infamous video games in history, ET for the Atari 2600, stamping its feet down on our planet in December of 1982 as one of gaming's original warlords, most known for being a contributor to the video game Crash of '83. Not many games out there have the ability to say a bunch of its copies were buried in a desert. And to be straight up with the final boss here, there's nothing truly elaborate that you're gonna be able to extract from the conquest you'll be embarking on in this day and age. It's an Atari game. Even with the most expansive titles out there like Adventure, you're literally playing as a dot. Trying to distinguish what you're looking at, who you are, or what is happening is kind of part of the fun. Are these ropes or strings of capellini? It's for you to decide. So when I was going into this legendary rectangle, I wasn't expecting much. After seeing Edward Titty staring at me in his oddly high quality rendition for the time period, I thought he'd look more like this. The game begins with E.T. descending from space, stepping into our realm with a goal of stomping his stumps around, trudging through various areas, searching for items, I think. I was waltzing around aimlessly, picking up dots that would put a small, deformed pretzel stick at the bottom of my screen, and occasionally, when I fell into one of the plastic bowls hidden within the Earth's surface, I would discover a small trinket that I didn't understand what I was required to do with it. So collecting items seems to be the goal. Needless to say though, I had no idea what I was doing when it comes to getting the "You Are Winner" for this game. E.T. appears to be one of those Atari games you need a booklet or to look up what you need to do to play, otherwise it's literally impossible to progress. I do think it's admirable when the programmers would try creating a game that is more than moving a line on the screen to hit a square ball back and forth, but realistically, when the technology at your disposal is the equivalent to cigarette ashes and Lincoln Logs, the simplicity will almost always win. Pick up and play is the unofficial motto of Atari, and when it comes to E.T., I wanted to try deciphering the ancient hieroglyphs, figuring out what I needed to do all on my own, but I simply couldn't. The only tale I lived to tell was me getting stun-locked by falling in the previously mentioned terrain dinnerware endlessly. When this happens, you need to extend your neck to soar out of the depths, wasting E.T.'s 9,999 pacemaker voltage that powers his otherworldly build, and when that number reaches 0, Elliot spawns from the side of your screen, sacrificing himself to resurrect the mummified Edward, giving him 1,500 more voltage until he dies again by walking or flying. This happens constantly because you spend a majority of your playtime falling into holes, which gets incredibly irritating when you're trying to figure out what you need to do. Furthermore, with taking control away from the player, you also need to deal with these hooligans that are trying to grab you, wanting to deliver E.T. to the famous Roman numeral 3 building hidden within a nearby lake. I'm really not sure what the point of including this is. It doesn't do anything to you that I notice. When you get placed in jail, you can just walk out no problem. I figured the pits would be enough when it comes to taking control away from the player, but apparently we needed buckets more, which is the part that I believe is where the biggest problem of E.T. lies. Literally nobody likes it when a game is constantly removing their ability to control themselves. And that's really all E.T. is. You keep falling in holes, forcing you to fly out, you'll fall back in and need to repeat the process. Then if you get touched by one of the local bandits, you need to sit there and wait, not being able to do anything. You gotta deal with all that, on top of you not knowing what you need to do to win, in an era that traditionally had the depth of tic-tac-toe, so it's no wonder to me why the game got fed to the trapdoor alligators. The game is just annoying. There's no other way to put it. I have a hard time believing a player would get any entertainment out of this, no matter the levels of nostalgia toasted deep within the cartridge. Now, I guess this begs the question, is this the worst video game of all time, like it's typically put out to be? Honestly, I don't think so, because, again, it's an Atari game. I feel like the 2600 era is a gray area for calling games a debilitating disease. You can argue almost every one of these games are bad at this point in time due to you only being able to get like 10 to 15 minutes of enjoyment out of them. There isn't a lot to uncover when looking at these things. They either keep your attention immediately or they don't. They're quite literally the TikTok and YouTube shorts of the gaming space. However, ET's existence does create an interesting conversation of comparing it to games that released many years after it. Like, would you say ET is worse than Mr. Bean on PS2? Sure, it's more technologically impressive, but it's just as, if not more, fucking disgusting. Who, what, where, when, and why a human concocted the idea to create a Mr. Bean video game is beyond anyone's comprehension. This withered husk obviously comes from our friends over at Blast! Entertainment, a company notorious for delivering gems that would make vacuuming up sand at the beach seem like it's worth your time. And unsurprisingly, this is no different. When you start the game up, getting into your gaming posture, viewing your blurry cutscene of the Mr. Bean cartoon, you are plunged into a kind of platformer. I don't believe there's a term in the landscape of gaming for when you walk in straight lines on a Scooby Snack collectathon, delving through pathways looking for keys to get jigsaw puzzle pieces. So it's a Mr. Bean exclusive, apparently. As we go on our trek, we do have to deal with a few creatures scattered about who want Mr. Bean dead, like dogs, moles, bees, and grandmas, with your only tool of defense being the forbidden war crime, canned green phosphorus to spew into their nostrils or faces, giving them a slow, painful death. At least sometimes, there are a few enemies that you cannot kill, like the dogs or grandmas, but to be honest, you can just walk straight past them, not giving a damn about their existence anyways. The chances of their recessive genes to be cognitive enough, firing on all cylinders to take down our Family Guy cutaway cryptid is slim to none, and besides, even if it does happen, we are playing through one of those surreal experiences where dying doesn't matter. You'll respawn a small ways back at a checkpoint to keep your performance levels high, allowing for the riveting action to never end. The reasoning, or excuse rather, behind our unbelievably simple loop is obviously this is a kid's game. The biggest joke you could ever hear in the gaming world. That lame brain, idiotic ass comment will never truly mask what the goal of games like Mr. Bean are. It's just a ruse to get a company's sticky fingers into an unsuspecting person's wallet. In the year 2007, I do believe gaming was a bit more intricate than this. That whole level 1 is essentially the entire game scenario. Or actually, excuse me, in a future level, I did find a statue that allowed me to suck up moles in a vacuum cleaner, so that changes everything. They really were trying after all. This right here is what I call elbow grease. The only rationale a player would have to introduce Sonic's ancestors to the Dyson is if you're interested in acquiring a small increase to your health, but getting the health upgrade is kinda pointless since, again, death isn't really punishing. You can easily go through every level no issue, with or without them, to reach your world boss, a jigsaw puzzle. Yep, it's really a shame, Blast. You guys had so much to work with when it comes to a Mr. Bean video game, and you dropped the ball big time. With the amount of players begging for one of these, to this day even, you should all be slamming your fingers into car doors for this play. But to be fair, our favorite goons did decide to go off on another limb, making a game about a different beloved character players worldwide want to control with their phalanges to make up for their sins, Paddington Bear, the video game. That, I will say, has more variety than Mr. Bean. Here, we're doing real missions, like jumping through our flooded kingdom to reach buttons so we can take a bath, going through a store, pressing a button on shelves, searching for clothes, sorting random objects coming down from a conveyor belt, and one of the most pointless levels I have ever seen in a video game. Walking through a subway with no goal whatsoever. You just walk through it, avoid the one boy in blue, go up an escalator, walk again, it's over in a minute. And if you thought that police officer is here to deliver some challenge to the level, he's not. It's literally impossible to lose in Paddington Bear. The amount of health you have is how many pieces of bread Paddington has stocked away in his pocket. When you get hit or mistime an objective, you only lose about 3 to 4, and with how many you can find per level, Pat will fall to no man, and he will feast on chicken legs as his peasant villagers watch. Death or failure doesn't even cross his mind. It's to the point our sire doesn't need to do the objectives when the overlords attempt giving him a time limit. For instance, when Big P is called upon to become the martyr for that infamous shirt storm of '07, the game tells you to collect the pieces of clothing falling from the sky, but you can stand there, do absolutely nothing, and still win. If you collected your bread, fuck those people's clothes. It's a similar situation with every other timed objective in the game, even the final battle. You're expected to collect all of the plates and presents that were stolen by the local mischievous hedgehogs for your birthday party and put them on their respective tables, but you can stand in a spot where the hedgehogs won't hit you, wait 3 minutes, and you win. You literally don't even need to do the objective the game is telling you to do. And better yet, they didn't even program an ending. When the timer runs out, you see, "Congratulations," with your only options as restart or quit. This situation seriously goes to show you how little thought goes into Blast Entertainment video games. You guys make objectives that aren't even objectives because you don't need to participate in the reindeer games to win. All you need to do is wait for it to be done and over with all the other levels being no more in-depth than walking somewhere to push a button on your controller. You'd think these people's brains were handcrafted in a mortar and pestle. On top of that debacle, known as the story mode, we're also given a side mode where we're supposed to have the ability to customize Paddington's throne room by purchasing items with the pieces of bread you acquire during a playthrough, but they don't even track. I finished the game with over 100 in my pocket, and it says I have 0, so the mode doesn't even work. I'm not even joking, this is one of the most depressing video games I have ever seen in my life. This is a real game that was sold for money in a store in 2007 on the PlayStation 2. It took me less than 30 minutes to finish the whole game, with the only remotely challenging level being when I needed to peel down a dirt path on my whack-ass Huffy bike, stunting on picnic tables or wooden pallets. And the only reason it was difficult was thanks to how horrendous the bike controls. Imagine getting this as a Christmas gift. At that point, they might as well have given you a homebrew McDonald's meal with the pseudo meat patty being a lump of clay with a side order of car floor fries, because at least some positivity would have come out of that. There's actual worth. The floor fries have some nutrients, and eating clay is a meal not many people have had. It's pathetic that makeshift meal is, no exaggeration, a far more positive experience than Paddington Bear on PlayStation 2. So, with all that being said, is Paddington Bear and Mr. Bean on PS2 worse than ET on Atari 2600? If you're considering the technology available, no joke, you can say they are, and it's completely validated. At least Howard Scott Warshaw was trying. He was putting effort in to do something. The mouth breathers over at Blast clearly weren't. So I might be on Team ET. All I need to do now is take a cruise down to the Mojave Wasteland, getting myself a couple copies of Desert ET cartridges. It would be a nice road trip, honestly, and what better road trip is there than a PlayStation 1 Hooters Road Trip? A sick-ass video game giving us the option to pick from one of 3 cars, just to see that straight-line gaming is here to stay even after leaving the Blast Entertainment multiverse. However, we are driving amidst oncoming traffic, so that allows for the realism to splooge out, making this more entertaining than it otherwise would be. Nothing screams more enjoyment to me than tearing up asphalt, putting a plethora of people's lives in danger. Next time I peel down the highway, I'm 100% going on the wrong side of the road, driving headfirst into a family of 4, blowing their vehicle up, just like a video game. Honestly though, there's nothing else they could have done to create entertainment with Hooters Road Trip, so I can't blame them for this play. But ignoring the sociopathic driving, the main goal of this game is us trying to win the race we are taking part in, and I use race loosely since you never need to place first. In the chode of a playthrough we have, all you need to do is place top 5 in 2 races, then top 4 in the 3rd race, ending your game, unlocking yourself a new automobile that you need to license by driving on what is essentially another straight line. The first one I had the opportunity to license was called Rendan, and it didn't even feel like a reward to unlock. I'd love to know who was in the garage manufacturing tires for vehicles that launch out endless levels of oil slick to attempt killing the person driving the vehicle. If I tapped left or right, my car would careen towards a wall, so I had to fight against the D-pad just to drive straight. When I finished the licensing, I put this piece of junk away to collect dust. Thankfully, later down the road, I got a few new vehicles that performed a bit better, so when I got those future unlocks, I felt as if I was being knighted by my fellow nobles. By far, my favorite was this Clifford-ass truck, where I of course needed to drive the thing on this same road again to license it before doing a playthrough, seeming to be their tactic of retention farming the player. It's not like any effort went into this. There's only one licensed mission track you need to repeat with every new car. So if you want to 100% this game, get used to seeing this to then use that said vehicle to repeat the same tracks over and over again. With all the automobile video games that were being dished out on the PS1, what are we doing with this? There's no difficulty or thought put into the levels for that matter. The cars hardly feel unique from one another. You're just driving on roads, going from point A to point B. What's the point of this game? Oh, is it for the thirst trap loading screens and snippets of unicorns talking to me? You buy this to pant, pecker pull, drive in straight lines to see this? I guess it's worth it then. A little part of me really hopes the far lands has a gamer somewhere who's like, fuck Gran Turismo. Need for Speed? Don't want it. They need Hooters Road Trip. As much as I need WWE superstars to get behind the wheel and blow each other away. Not a day passes where I don't sit in confusion in the meal halls of the King's Court, wondering why WWE Crush Hour is a thing. I do believe everyone knows what WWE is at this point. They know what happens in the ring. They've seen the clips of the shenanigans contained within. So how or why the idea of putting these people in cars came to light is beyond me. It released in 2003, a short time after the car combat craze. Twisted Metal was the only relevant franchise doing it at that time, making it even more curious why this was made. But speaking purely for the wrestling world, I do need to hand it over to the people. I highly doubt anyone saw this coming. Crush Hour does get a few points for having that wowzer factor to it. However, that's the only genuine praise it could get, if you even want to call it praise, because this game is far below the standards of what any car combat player would ever expect. These things are typically action-packed gladiatorial battles, having peasants sitting in the stands. King Harkinian is taking the losers away to the dungeon. But this piece is not what all true warriors are striving for. The traditional death matches in Crush Hour are actual snooze fests. After picking from the various superstars at your disposal, suffering from unknown physical illnesses, if this is how Brock was looking in the locker room back in 04, it's no wonder why he left. You pick from one of your sock puppets to drive around in small to medium-sized arenas with 3 opponents, having a few weapons spread about, with a goal of racking up 10 kills that takes an ungodly amount of time. A lot of the weapons require you to stop and aim them, which is a questionable choice to make when the handling, even on characters that are more nimble, is rendanned out of its gourd. Controlling yourself is a lot harder than it seems, especially when in the midst of battle, so you end up wasting weapons more often than not, leaving you with only a little laser gun to become the tickle monster with, slowly brushing your opponent's health bar away, hoping the AI doesn't regain their health, since they absolutely love doing that. I always thought the Red Cross fetish was only a myth until I went through WWE Crush Hour. The only positive that comes out of needing to remove portions of your enemy's health bars repeatedly is that it charges your special weapon, typically being the unique factor to your playable character to help differentiate everybody on the roster, but sadly, they just don't. No matter the character you're playing as, the special weapon one-shots your enemy if you get the hit. There is no thought, there's no special function, you just press triangle, me get kill, food for family. And I'm assuming it was realized how mundane and, to be blunt, apathetic this all is, most likely being the reason why we have a plethora of game modes. Throughout the career, you do of course have the death matches, with stuff like hardcore tossed in, where you need to grab a belt and hold on to it for 30 seconds trying not to die. We have a sea urchin collectathon, or Royal Rumble, where you collect a crown and, again, try not to die, all unfortunately having a slight oversight of, if you're playing as a faster vehicle, you have a blatant advantage. Still, during my playthrough, I was kinda glad these other modes were tossed in. The death matches are equivalent to reliving the times of using your space heroes with light action figures, banging them together in hopes of stopping the sense of right's attack on New York City. I'd rather play keep away here and there than repeatedly battle the same 3 enemies with nothing more to it as I go on my way to defeat WWE's Dark Knight, Vinnie O'Mac, the final boss. That is kind of a joke. I waxed his shit in about 30 seconds. Playing games like Crush Hour really does make you appreciate the car combat titles that have actual quality to them. The lack of understanding for how to design one of these games is more than apparent here. You have this whole roster of characters, and the only tangible difference is their speed or ramming power. The special weapons are all inherently the same, putting the whole cast into only 2 segregated groups of big car, little car, as you go against 3 enemies at maximum, probably being the most bewildering choice to make. Usually you'd want to have 7 or 8 to make levels feel like a war zone. And yeah, you could definitely say, even if there was more enemies, the game still would have been a bowl of mashed potato brain experience. But at least you'd have a lot of explosions or cars driving around to help keep the drool in your mouth. I guess that's not to be, unfortunately. Crush Hour didn't spec into that skill tree. What we see here is what we get, a game that is either driving around to collect items or hold R1 to use machine gun laser, blowing up other cars, maybe tossing in a few twisty rockets. Having your game be brain dead seems to be a common theme with these things. I cannot for the life of me believe ET is the most mentally engaging one we've talked about so far. I always thought you'd want a game to make the player use their brain, challenge them in some way, or do something to extract any emotion, make the player want to swallow poison in the moment, throw their controller at the wall, pull their pants down, just something that isn't like wearing a dunce cap, calling up the squadron to figure out the math problem of 3 + 6 as you struggle reading 5-letter words. It's a curious thing when looking at a game from the outside. What is the thought process here? Could you show this game to the king without him ordering his knights to lop your head off with their halberds? Probably not. This is the kind of stuff that would get you killed in the monarchy days. It's similar to if you were showing the tax farmers Rambo for the Xbox 360, a legendary title of this generation, truly bringing you back to the past. Not only with the fact we are brought back to Vietnam, it also stems all the way to the core gameplay itself. As we know, in 2014, the expectations of video games was starting to get a lot higher than previous. This medium was becoming more and more popular by the day. Gamers were greasing up the gears on YouTube, making content. The whole space was becoming sentient, with a soul powerful enough to shred Hollywood's corrupted glory, asserting its place at the top of entertainment. And the best thing these bucketheads were able to muster in 2014 is a cinematic rail shooter, a type of game that we learned ages ago is only fun when you're using one of those attached toy guns, pretending you're mowing down everything on screen. Now, you should definitely wash your hands after using one. You could be getting boogers, Dorito dust, cum, whatever other yuckies that can be etched out of a person's fingernails when you grip the handle, but we all know these types of games are not fun when you're using a mouse or controller. It's more sad than anything else. At least you get a story though, right? You do, but I didn't pay attention to it, I'll be honest. These cutscenes are interspersed between your battles, usually with people talking about how much of an animal Rambo was before he died, or we can see Rambo interacting with local wildlife, leading into another action segment you need to take part in that I use loosely. When I'm seeing entire levels that are quick time event after quick time event after quick time event, then you toss me into a scuffle with Vietnamese soldiers, maybe a couple cops dragging a crosshair on my screen to shoot at them. It makes it more and more of a challenge to pretend I'm not living in some sort of dystopian society with real humans with actual brains who decided to publish this for $60 in 2014. Rambo practically plays itself, with the only thoughts required from you being to time your reload button press, occasionally needing to duck behind a wall, or when you're about to die, press A, then you shoot people to get all your health back. Outside of that, there's nothing to this game. How was this sold for $60? What hog slurping went down to make this transpire? The only thing you have to look forward to in levels is getting points. And for me, if you're going to be making points the #1 aspect to your game, give me some fucking tickets to get a couple toys or a piece of candy. Otherwise, points mean absolutely nothing. If I had to guess for real, Rambo must have had some sort of developmental shift last minute where the game was rushed out and this was all they were able to do to make the game function. Even during the PS2 era, I don't think this would have been acceptable as a full-price game. I know Mr. Bean and Paddington Bear came out on PS2, but those were not sold at full price. Rambo is at the quality level, honestly lower depending on which one you're looking at, of a 360 arcade marketplace game. There's no reason Rambo should have costed more than $10. And what boggles my mind the most about this game is that it's not Kinect compatible. Yeah, the decapitated Wally skull, motion-censored gaming gizmo was undoubtedly a gimmick, but this is one of the few games that it could have worked for. If there was a dork-ass peripheral sold and the overall price was $5–10, that's not a terrible deal. What we have here though, $60 thumbstick rail shooter gaming, that's game mill shit. And what a pivot. How can you talk about the licensed gaming sphere without mentioning the father of them all? The gunk lords, tossing heaters into the gaming space, dunking on the Space Jam squad from a wheelchair year after year. They always give you a perfect pathway leading you into a new franchise you know absolutely nothing about, like Cobra Kai. Thank you, Game Mill, for giving me this opportunity. Cobra Kai 2 Dojo's Rising released on November 8th, 2022, more recent than anything else so far, so you'd be expecting it to deliver the quality you'd want from the gaming world, and it absolutely does. Upon starting the game, you see the animation style they chose for the cutscenes is this choppy paper look, most likely due to the budget for Game Mill titles being not much more than pocket lint. After you swallow the cutscene, you can choose from one of 3 gangs. Eagle Fang Karate is the one I went with, because Eagle, where we are then plopped into the grainy lands of Dojo's Rising. I don't understand this visual filter. I'm not sure what's happening with that. Is it aesthetic? Is there a hidden art form I'm not aware of? Did they not care? Who knows at this point? The reasoning can be Game Mill, and what they decided to deliver to us as a game is a beat-em-up fighter hybrid. You start out in a junkyard of some kind, playing as a character named Miguel or Johnny, since they give you the ability to switch between multiple characters on the go, pulverizing a variety of nearby bandits that want to rumble. And it obviously goes without saying, if you know anything about Game Mill, the combat here embodies Ed, Edd n Eddy's very own plank. Cobra Kai doesn't have the fluidity of surrounding beat-em-up titles, but in a weird turn of events, even considering the cucka-poo-poo fighting feel, Cobra Kai seemed to have a bit more to it than a typical game published by these gremlins. Looking over the fact, I was actually shocked to see a dodge roll stuck into the game to add a bit more depth. We have a variety of characters you'll run into as you play, forcing you to perform certain actions to unlock them, with each having the ability to level them up, and you can also upgrade your special attacks too. So initially, it was looking like there was an attempt to make a real video game here. Shortly into your session though, you'll discover you were nothing more than a fish nibbling at the line thinking that, mainly cause the inklings of brain usage is completely wiped away due to the functionality. This game has some wild, nonsensical moments going on, forgetting the glitchy-ass mid-level cutscenes showing me behind the scenes of an abyssal ruin. I had moments where I would get stuck in mid-air, not able to move at all. I would kill enemies to finish an area, and the game would soft lock, not letting me leave, forcing me to restart from a previous checkpoint. When I was going through this school, people were getting sent through portals hidden within walls. Others were getting stuck in areas I can't go. Every level you traverse feels like a broken down vehicle that you're expecting to catch fire if you go above 15 miles per hour. But thankfully, to spice up the game, helping the player avoid seeing the dysfunctional beat-em-up stages, we have the one-on-one fighting mode, which has to be one of the most dilapidated 1v1 fighters I have seen ever. You pick from one of the characters you unlocked to square up against what might be the first instance of a sentient tube of toothpaste. Talk about a tomato can. No matter the character you are fighting, you can stand there, pressing one button, not even look at the screen, and the AI will take it, getting their pockets ran, posing no threat whatsoever. You need to either knock them out of the ring or take their health bar down to win, and I always won by getting 6 knockouts because they just stand there doing nothing. It's honestly a shock when they fight back. I'd love to know what kind of programming was done here, if this was the ChatGPT beta or what. Please educate me on that, for how and why this was done. I just need an explanation. Apparently, you can play this online, which would have been a doozy to give a whirl, but no one's playing it. Why would they? Do you really think a sane person would spend $50 fucking on this in the economy we're living in? You're giving players a 28 character roster that all feel the same in both the beat 'em up and fighting modes, so the number means absolutely nothing. The beat 'em up levels are riddled with bugs. The 1v1 fighting offline is equivalent to grade 1 English homework for a $50 price tag. A person could be the biggest Cobra Kai fan on Earth, Pluto, the moon, anywhere, and that's still not a justification to buy this thing at full price. For $5, $10, sure, but you think these crooks are gonna reduce the price? It's been 3 years, and if you want to get this game on Steam, the Xbox Store, PlayStation Store, you need to spend the full $50. I'm really not sure what's more depressing, that or the fact Cobra Kai is one of the better game mill titles I have played, and the best rating you could possibly give this thing is like a 3, maybe a 4. Regardless of what you think about it though, what they're trying to do here is more than evident. Not a soul can argue this thing is worth the price you're spending, and it of course doesn't stop there. You can grab any title from their hat of tricks and feel like you visited a deep jungle shaman who casted a curse on you for wiping your feet on his favorite log, sending you into an endless trance with your jaw hitting the floor, staring at something like Walking Dead Destinies, stunned at the lack of effort contained within. Walking Dead is a franchise that is definitely bigger than Cobra Kai. People I've known claim it's a book from the Bible come to life, ready to tussle. Peasants from other kingdoms claim it's similar to seeing Ra rise from his plasmic tomb in slow motion. And AMC really decided to toss the franchise over to the ragtag group of pirates who are attempting to rob various sea villages regularly. If you've made it this far into the video, I'd imagine you already know what kind of game Walking Dead Destinies is going to be. It's a grand old third-person zombie title that is just like Cobra Kai and every other game mill title with a story in it, filled with cutscenes that are a bunch of still images panning in and out to simulate movement. The only real takeaway is how you get a solid look at the character models. My favorite is Rick with his tic-tac-toe forehead glory, looking as if he's a child dressed up as himself. And this baby-faced walnut will be absolutely perfect to control, trudging through these straight pencil line ass levels for zombie slaughtering mayhem. An experience that is no Dying Light 3, no Dead Rising 18 futuristic boogaloo. Instead, it's rigor mortis scuffling, unstable gaming. One of my very first encounters with a zombie resulted in a choppy, buggy animation with Rick glitching through the zombie when breaking out of its grip, a consistent thing that happens through the game. Shockingly, I didn't run into many other bugs, and I don't count the times where I'd see zombies standing there not attacking me or staring at a wall, so it's more stable than Cobra Kai was, but you're still not getting that 50 bones of worth. There is no broth in this shit. The game continuously hurls levels at you that all play the same, giving you opportunities that I use loosely effortlessly to either sneak past zombies or assert dominance as you go from point A to point B, accomplishing a bland objective, with sneaking typically being the better option of the two. If you engage with zombies, you'll have too many to deal with. You're better off just crouch walking to stab them in the back to get an instant kill, unless you have the proper weapon to one-shot them or know how to abuse the game's rotten mechanics. By performing the ancient technique of simply hitting a zombie once, even with your fists, you can insta-kill it with a knife. So if you want to go loud, you can abuse that for the entirety of your playthrough if you decide to play this for that long. Keeping a player's attention in a game that is supposed to be the world's end survival against the wrinkled skin monsters is a serious challenge when every level is a straight pathway with the same objectives forever. I kind of figured you'd want to make your game about zombies a bit more open, maybe let the player immerse themselves into some sort of universe, feeling like nothing more than an ant walking through the streets hoping not to get pulverized by the dead. It's a formula that works, and I genuinely don't think a Walking Dead fan would have complained if they could have used all their favorite characters in that environment. It wouldn't be original, but the recognition would have made players look past that. But no, instead we get a game scrapped up in a short period of time, budgeted with items you could actually find in the Walking Dead universe, in a cheap attempt to cash in on the franchise for money, hoping unsuspecting people will buy the game purely off of recognition. No thought, no care, no passion, no nothing. Rush it out, cut all corners possible, sell it for $50. Hooray, fucking Game Mill. Absolute pieces of shit, dude. The fact these guys publish games of this quality in the current generation, selling them at the prices they do, is astounding to me. I really wish there was more to delve into with Walking Dead. There sadly isn't. It's one of those games you can show someone one single screenshot and they already know what's going down. Sometimes visuals speak louder than words, and nothing needs to be said. Back in the days of Mr. Bean, this practice made a bit more sense, with gaming not being regulated as much as it is now. Not to excuse it, what they were doing is obvious. It's the same play Game Mill is doing. I just struggle to understand how in the 2020s, with how prevalent the internet and social media is, how does this still happen? Why is there a Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer game that looks like it was made for PlayStation 2, releasing in September of 2025 for $50? How can a company drop heaters like Skull Island Rise of Kong and still have the ability to release games after it? Or why are people buying these things might be a better question. As I said in the video I made about Game Mill previously, they wouldn't be doing this if people weren't spending money on their games. If you are out there buying this junk, give me the $50. Give the money to me instead. I'll blow it at Chuck E. Cheese getting myself an oversized rat plushie to bring home. Regardless of the era you purchase a game in, if there's a license attached, it's probably gonna be awful unless you get really lucky finding a game like Riddick Escape from Butcher Bay, but the chances of that happening is so low. More often than not, you're gonna be playing a game similar to what we played today, one where you need to scrape the bottom of the barrel to find positives, or not find any at all. If you have any licensed video games that are actually good, make sure to leave them in the comments below, or share your thoughts on these ones. I'm curious what you all have to say about them. Big ups to our channel members for going above and beyond to support the channel even further. If you want to join them and get early access to content, hit the join button right next to the subscribe button if you haven't already done so. Thank you all so much for watching. As always, take very good care of yourselves, and I hope to see you all again in the next video.